My mom slaps me and wants to kick me out. What do I do? It's a long story. Just so you know, I am 19 years old. We got into a fight and I honestly have no idea how it started. I tried to keep composure the whole time, but in the end I lost control because of how my mother was treating and belittling me during the whole ordeal. In turn she slapped me and I fought back by attempting to prevent her from hitting me by grabbing and restraining her hands while yelling, "You do not have the right to hit me." She then played like the victim to the rest of the family and wants me gone. This had happened before, but that was a while ago. I'm not going to lie, I feel like I was the one who crossed the line and maybe I was in the wrong the whole time, but I'd have to give you the full picture in order to determine that. If anyone wants to know more, I'll update this post. Update. Before I get into the full story of what happened, I want to make this clear. Since this is only coming from my perspective, I would highly recommend to take it with a grain of salt. I am only going to be explaining what happened through my eyes and what I remember, and even those two aren't credible. I don't really care if you pick a side or not, I just want to give you the full picture as best as I can because that's what you really deserve as the reader. Story. These are the key people I will be referring to without giving out their real names just for privacy. I have two dogs who are pretty much irrelevant to the story, but I'll give you their names just for the sake of giving you all the details. One of them is small and the other is a little bit bigger. The small one is named Little Bud, and the bigger one is Big Bud. Another person who was kind of involved was my little brother, I'll refer to him as Bro. And the person I had a fight with is my mother, I'll refer to her as Mom. I won't name the rest of the family since they were not there when this happened. After my last shift at the part-time job I worked at, I drove home. When I made it back, I walked inside and started greeting my dog Big Bud. Mom came in and asked about how work was and all of those other small talk questions. At this time she was being herself, honest, kind, and a bunch of other positive traits that she always has. I want to mention this before getting any further, but when I have fights or out of control arguments with Mom, she's usually extremely tired, stressed, or under some kind of influence like alcohol. I would excuse these, but whenever it got to the point she was getting physical, I would never excuse those causes. The same goes for this case too. I'm sure this has happened more, but I can only recall 2 and possibly 3 times she got physical, and I'd rather not look back on these memories either. I remember during sophomore year, during the pandemic, Mom got into a fight with me. I stood my ground, of course, then she did the unthinkable. She reached out with her hand and grabbed my neck like she was going to choke me. I don't remember actually getting choked, but she essentially grabbed my neck to force me to look at her. As she held my neck she stated this with a demeaning voice, "I am your mother, and you are the child. You don't know anything, never speak to me like that." I will never forget that and what she said. I want to talk about my other memory, but we would be getting off topic. Back to the main event, I told her that work was fine today, and we had a pretty good talk that lasted a minute. I put away my shoes and car keys, then headed towards the basement, which was kind of my living space. I usually live down there with my twin brother, but he was still at university, so I had the whole place to myself. I hopped on our gaming console and started to continue playing AO2 Attack on Titan 2. It's a game based on the anime and manga, just so you know. 2 hours had passed, and I started to feel hungry. I paused the game and started to head back upstairs to get a snack. I walked through the basement door and into the living room as I was heading to the kitchen. As I walked by, Mom was laying out a blanket on top of the living room couch. But she didn't seem like she was 2 hours earlier when I got back home. She looked partially upset, so obviously I went to go and check on her. I asked Mom if she was okay and she explained she was, just a little ticked about how Bro wasn't taking care of one of the family dogs, Big Bud. Big Bud was Bro's early birthday gift, and Mom was complaining how Bro was barely taking care of him while the rest of us did. I agreed with her, and after a moment I walked back to the kitchen. Mom then asked if I wanted pizza from the local restaurant we get it from. Though, when she asked me this, she had this sense of annoyance in her voice. I was pretty hungry, so obviously, I was totally be down for pizza. Mom asked if I could pick it up and pay the cashier with her card. I agreed without any hesitation. Mom said she'd call, and I could leave in 15 minutes to go get it. The deal was sealed, and I went downstairs to continue playing on the console for about 15 more minutes until she called me up to get ready to leave. I stood up and paused the game, then I noticed something was off in one of my pockets. I felt around and I realized my wallet was missing. Looking back, I can't believe this is where it started. Around goddamned misplaced wallet. I've found my wallet now. I accidentally put it somewhere in the house where I don't normally store it. But I didn't know this at the time when I was looking for it. I checked around the basement and headed upstairs to find it. Before I could continue, Mom was waiting for me in the kitchen. She wanted to give me her card in order to pay for the pizza I was picking up. After Mom handed me the card, I asked, "Hey, have you seen my wallet?" She responded with, "Why do you need your wallet? I'm paying for the pizza." I explained, "Well, I don't want to drive without my wallet. It had my driver's license, and I never wanted to take the risk of being pulled over and not have it with me." I then went on to say, "I think I might have left it at work." Maybe Mom misunderstood because she asked with a raise in her tone, "You left your wallet there?" I then said, "What? No," I said, "might have left it there. It wouldn't have been a big deal anyway because my wallet would have been stored in my locker if I did accidentally leave it at work. Also, remember, I misplaced my wallet somewhere in the house. It was never at the place I work." Mom then started to sound really annoyed. She said I needed to go get the pizza that she was paying for. While I was searching, based on my memory, Mom got progressively more upset. She went on over and over about how irresponsible I am and how I would never be capable of taking care of myself or my things. She said how she couldn't believe I left my wallet at work and that I was never going to be a responsible adult. I just ignored her constant nagging. It seemed like she wanted to have a fight with me, but I didn't really have the capability to care since it was all stupid to begin with. I've spent I think 3 or 4 minutes trying to find my wallet before giving up and heading for the car. I entered the laundry room to get to the exit, and there was Mom sitting on the floor petting Big Bud. Before I walked out, Mom asked, "Did you find your wallet?" She asked that question like she already knew the answer, that being no. I knew what kind of BS she would pull if I answered with a no. She would continue bullying me if that's the right word. Mom has done this so many times before when she was in this state. I should have just walked out right then and there without saying anything. It could have come out differently. But I didn't. I already had my hand on the door and I sighed. I replied back with, "Mind your own business," then opened the door and left to get the pizza. Mom took a pause for a moment and started spewing words out of her mouth as I closed the door behind me. She went on and on about something, but I didn't care to listen to whatever tangent she was on about. I just wanted to get the pizza and eat. After a bit I come back home with the pizza box in hand and made it inside. As I entered I said, "Hey, I'm back with the pizza." In the kitchen stood Mom and sitting by the island was Bro. I walked in and placed the pizza on the counter hoping that Mom calmed down and blew off all of her steam. Believe it or not, she didn't, and she wasn't done with me yet. I turned my head to see her expressionless pissed off face. I'm sure we all know what that expression is. She turned around and walked away for a bit. I continued to open up the pizza box and grabbed myself a few slices and stepped to the side so I wasn't in the way of Bro as he was getting some. I took out the credit card Mom gave me and set it on the kitchen island and went to go take a seat. I started eating my slices, and then Mom came back still looking red. I was ready for what was coming next as I ate there. Mom started to lose her temper on me and claimed that I was being way out of line. Mom took it so far to the point that she said I was just like my dad. Now my dad is an entirely separate story that I might want to talk about. He's done his fair share of being toxic. Though right now I'm not going to get into that, at least not yet. Her claims were entirely made up just to support her rage because I knew I was nothing like my dad. After a minute of just yelling at me non-stop about the same stupid, again and again, I already had enough. I've tried to be reasonable and logical that whole time only to be met with interruption after interruption. I yell back at her, "Okay, great. Can we move on now?" She looked at me and said, but then she was about to yell more at me before I interrupted her. I shouted, "Then shut up and let's move on." She stared at me livid for a second before quickly walking over to my plate and grabbing it away. She sounded so mad. I can't remember what she was saying, but I think it was like, "You do not talk back to me." She was about to get all over my face, so I just raised my hands and started to walk away until things died down. That whole time Bro was there to witness all of it. I headed back downstairs to take a moment to breath and continued to play my game again. I'd like to say it was 30 minutes until I felt it was ready to go back upstairs again. I go back upstairs and walk back to the kitchen to continue eating. I grabbed my plate again and then Mom walked over. She was demanding for me to apologize to her, but for what? For defending myself? Taking a stand against whatever she was going through? How the hell was this my fault? I told myself in my head, there is nothing you need to apologize for. I don't think I said anything when I was grabbing more slices, I was just trying to ignore her. She then had the audacity to take my plate away from me in the pizza box saying something like, I am not going to let you eat until you do. I started calling out all of this bullshit she was throwing at me. I was trying to stay calm and composed, but she just kept interrupting me again and again. She kept calling me things that just weren't true. When she finally stopped to give me a moment to talk, I tried to explain to her, I'm not being an, I'm trying to defend myself. Then she would interrupt my sentence and state, defend yourself from being in. Her saying that I was the one being in seemed more or less of an excuse to treat me the way she did. She went on to continue on how I've changed and that I never spend any time with her. These claims were untrue because 1, I literally had dinner with her alone at an expensive restaurant, and 2, how the hell have I changed? Did I change from being less controllable? That seems like the case to me. This whole time I've been trying to talk normally and be reasonable with her, but Mom was not willing to cooperate. I don't think I was even able to say anything once that whole time she was yelling at me. I just couldn't take it anymore. I had to be heard, to speak my mind. At this point I lost my temper. I put my foot down and started screaming at her at the top of my lungs. I think I started with, shut up and listen to me. I can't remember every detail on what I said, but I know I was just yelling out what was in my mind about her, about how she was treating me. What I do remember was towards the end, I was summing up everything in my argument and said, you are being a BH. Or something like that. With that out of my system, she almost immediately slapped me, and I immediately started getting defensive right after that. I think she was about to hit me again, so I stopped her by grabbing her hands before hitting me again. I started shouting, you do not have the right to hit me. She was just screaming as she got a couple more hits on me. With this going on, I heard Bro coming downstairs and shouting my name saying, stop. I heard his plea and backed off. I had to process what just happened because whenever someone gets physical with me first I always fight back automatically without thinking. A couple breaths in and Mom was screaming at me to leave, to move out and not come back anymore. I was still processing what just happened as she demanded me to leave. Without a word I went to the laundry room to put my shoes on. After I put on the other shoe I stopped and started to think about what just happened and how this all started. In the background I could hear Mom screaming, get out. It absolutely hurt to hear her say that, but I was too overwhelmed to respond. She and Bro eventually left and I sat there on the laundry room floor thinking about what just happened and what I've done. It must have been an hour because everything in the house was dark once I snapped out of it. I wasn't sure if she was bluffing when she demanded me to leave to kick me out. I stepped out of the laundry room quietly and headed for the basement where my bedroom was. I couldn't cry and I couldn't think straight. In my head I repeated, what do I do? What do I do? When I arrived for my bed I didn't even know where to start first. Should call someone? Do I need to tell a friend? Should I even call the police? Should I even call the national helpline? I was honestly so scared I couldn't decide. I eventually thought that the safest place to find advice was here on our Entitled Parents. I've heard stories from here that sounded similar to mine, so I thought this would be the best place. So I made my first post here before I updated it to include the entire story. Post story. I haven't interacted with Mom yet since that night, and to be honest I'm not planning to either. What she did was the last straw. I am completely done with her now. The last time we had a fight like that she promised she would never be like that again. Mom broke that promise one too many times and now I'm just completely done. I don't care about how she feels anymore. I don't care if she's in my life anymore or not. I don't care if she's going to be apologizing because I sure know as hell that I'm not. Clearly she had not learned from her past mistakes with this, and I am just done now. I've seen all of your advice and I've had the time to think. I'm going to try and move out. It just makes sense that I do. I need to transition from being a late adolescent into a young adult. I haven't been able to make any progress since I was dwelling on this thought, but now I do want to act on it. I appreciate all of your support and advice. If anything happens I will try and update this post.